Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on very important day of Dr. Ambedkar's birth anniversary. He was born in, what year was he born in?
1891.
1891, yes. So we have a wonderful panel with us, and we'll discuss why the Indians are in some ways not equal in the country, and those rules and regulations that were put in 1950. And it's a discussion and debate whether they were supposed to sunset in 10 years or not. And 75 years later, we still have the reservations. And how long should we continue with those reservations? And will they be here 100 years from now or upon our 100th anniversary of our birth of the country in 2047? We'll discuss all of this, and we'll open up for audience questions and answers as well. Indian Lawyers Association, we started in 2018. It's an industry body for the 1.5 million lawyers in India. And it took a while, but I think it's time the lawyers in the country had an industry body to look after the welfare and growth of the lawyers and the legal profession in the country. And our goal is to have 400 chapters. There's 400 cities in India with a population of over 100,000, over 1 lakh, and we will have in all 400 cities. So we have a few panelists with us. I'll request all the panelists to give us a brief introduction of their life and work. And we'll start with you, Justice Kothari, if you can give us a brief summary of your life.
Thank you, Navneet. Friends, very happy, and I'm grateful to my friend Gagan Kumar and Navneet to invite me on this very, very important, I would say, debate and discussion today. And my brief intro is that I'm 63 years of age now, 63 plus. Served bar as lawyer for about 20 years, then judge as 16 years plus 3 months, and in 4 high courts, Rajasthan, Karnataka, Madras, and Gujarat. Retired as acting Chief Justice of Gujarat on the last date. And now I'm again a designated senior in Supreme Court. So I practice, of course, in Supreme Court plus arbitrations and all that. So happy to be here. Of course, I can't claim to be expert of any subject, even like constitution, because it's a never-ending kind of thing which everybody, every lawyer and judge should remain a student at. And that's why I always say I'm a student of law. Background-wise, of course, I'm a CA, CS also, PhD in taxation. So tax and commercial law has been my cup of tea. But having practiced in writ jurisdiction mostly, I'm a constitutional lawyer also. So that is my brief, yes.
Thank you for joining us, Justice Kothari. Gagan, thank you for becoming the president of ILA, and thank you for your years of service as president of ILA Delhi. If you can tell us about your life.
Thank you, Mr. Chug. As you briefly mentioned that I'm currently holding the position of president of ILA. I am, like Justice Kothari, a CA turned lawyer. I practiced as a chartered accountant for about 12 years now, for the last decade or more, working as a lawyer and focusing more on tax laws. After working in several firms, now I'm running my independent practice. That's all about it. But thank you everyone for joining us today for this interactive discussion on equality, why we are still not equal.
So Gagan, what does the Constitution say about taxes? If you had to say one sentence about Indian Constitution and tax, what is that sentence?
Thankfully, it's actually one-liner. Article 265, no tax can be recovered without authority of law. So,
okay. All right.
Nobody has been able to define tax finally and conclusively.
Right.
Yes.
And this is out of topic, but we're lawyers, so then everything goes. Why does the Constitution of India stop the 29 states to charge income tax on their own?
So, well, that's relatively more technical, but the power to charge income tax falls under union list. So that's the reason why only union government can levy tax on income.
Right. Yeah, it would be nice if the states had the power to tax. Then the 29 states would compete on what's a good taxation system. And so there'd be 29 trains running simultaneously, in which we can see which one is doing a good job. And the another advantage, of course, there's many advantages, but a big advantage is that there's two regulatory bodies reviewing tax returns and auditing tax returns, and that increases the compliance. And then the third big advantage is that the states are not begging the federal government for money and have some sort of independence. And what 4% of the country files a tax return and 3% pays tax, should be 100%, no?
Yes, so that's I think that's leave that topic for some other day. When I have Justice Kothari today to speak on equality, and if I can take a lead with your permission, Mr. Chug, to set the tone.
Right.
So Justice
That's
Kothari.
That's what Dr. Ambedkar would say also, that don't talk about tax today. So Dr. Methi, tell us.
Thanks a lot, Navni sir. Basically, I am serving to the government of India. And during that one, in my services, I have done my PhD in law and CS. 3 years back, we people formed one pro bono organization. That name is Indic School of Jurisprudence. And we people are working various aspects of the law, education, research and development, publication, advocacy and leadership also. So during the journey of my serving to the government of India, I did my all the education, and I realized that I have to return something else. So I'm working with that one, and presently I am serving as a chapter president of ILA Jaipur. Over to Navni.
Thank you. CJ, your turn.
I'm practicing in Mumbai in the High Court, and whenever I get opportunity, I come to the Supreme Court also. I also appear in other high courts in India. And along with that, I'm an academician as well. I have taught in almost all the law colleges in the cities of Mumbai as well as Navi Mumbai, and I have delivered a few webinars as well during the COVID across several universities throughout the country. Till this last semester, I was teaching in MIT Law School, and thereafter I have discontinued. Now I'm fully concentrating in my office.
Great. Thank you so much. So Justice Kothari, the Constitution was set in motion in 1950. There is debate of what Dr. Ambedkar wanted. There is some chatter that he didn't want a reservation system. And then others leading the country at that time leaned on him and said, we need to do something for the backward classes. And then he agreed to a special quota for 10 years, and it was supposed to sunset in 1960. And it's still going on. And what is your opinion? That is 75 years enough? Should we sunset it now?
Yeah, thanks, Navid. I think equality we can't understand only in the background or context of reservations, which we now understand with reference to Article 14 and 15 and 16. In my understanding and opinion, which I unfortunately could not express anywhere as a judge, despite 16 years in 4 high courts, no case came across me. But not only the Constitution envisaged this reservation only for 10 years initially, but it kept on extending, and now even is going on. In my understanding, the reservation as a policy could have been there and should have been there, but certainly not caste-based. In my understanding, even Ambedkar, for that matter, was against caste system. And I would quote him, I took it from Google also today. He said on caste is not a physical object like a wall of bricks or a line of barbed wire, which prevents the Hindus from commingling with, and which has therefore been pulled down. Caste is a notion, it is a state of mind. As we see in our country with so many variety of thousands and maybe lakhs castes all across the borders, west to east and north to south. The reservation based on caste, irrespective of the merit, has, in my understanding, not done a good for the country at all. It might have helped some so-called weaker sections of the society to get preferences in the field of education and employment, but ignoring of the merit in both these fields has caused more problems than solving it. In my understanding, and rather I am a firm believer of that also, that the reservation, if at all, as a affirmative action on the part of the state, should have been taken, it should have been taken on the basis of economic conditions, poverty and richness. Whatever you call it, BPL you call it, or a particular line of economic standing you take it, but it should not have anything to do with which family you were born in. The equality which we talk in Article 14 of the Constitution, in my understanding, is not a mathematical equality. Even the 5 fingers of your hand are not of the same size. So there is no question of 2 men or man or woman or anybody anywhere being equal in that sense. Equality, as I understand, is a good ecosystem in any sovereign country, in a country as varied and as big as India, which ecosystem should provide equal opportunity, ease of living, ease of business. That is what equality actually means. To achieve that equality in that true sense, in last 75 years, the government of the day has taken various actions which they call affirmative actions. And after Mandal Commission particularly, these reservations limited to 50% by Supreme Court, increased by EBC, etc., again upheld by Supreme Court, going up to now 65, 75%, has somewhere down the line, in my understanding, has not done more good than what cost. As an accountant, as a chartered accountant, I would always look for a cost-benefit analysis. What is the cost of a policy which you adopt, and what is the benefit which you get out of that policy? Should be constantly weighed, evaluated, and looked. That kind of analysis, our civic society, our legal system, our judiciary also has not undertaken. And that is the most, I would say, negative part of this entire affirmative action which has happened in this country. If we are talking of equality in the form of a good ecosystem in our country after 100 years, in 2047, I think it is high time, sir, in my opinion, and firm opinion, I would say, that this direction of this affirmative action has to be changed from caste-based reservation to economic criteria-based reservations. This is my initial reaction on reservations.
Thank you, Justice Kothari. So, Dr. Methi, the Indian Constitution says all human beings are equal, and then the government carries on and this affirmative action, and I think recently was extended for another 10 years till 2030. So the act of the government that they continue to do a reservation quota system, is that not unconstitutional?
Actually, right now I am unable to say anything else about these one, but Justice Kothari put some points in front of us. Okay, good ecosystem, and recently you have the government of India has taken a change of economic backward class reservation for that. So isn't it? It's a starting to change something else. Isn't it just like we are taking a step which is required to be taken 30 years or 40 years or 50 years back? So in my opinion, it's an affirmative change which can seen by the government side and society also. We try to ponder how we can take a positive state or a step, just like we are talking about that 2047, a nation with equality and with a different mindset. So I think that journey has been started, and there are so many factors on the basis of that government take the decision, or we are unable to say anything else. What the pressure groups and all of things are working. I am from the Rajasthan, and recently we have seen a trend at there. There is a Mahapanchayat and Mahasangams of caste. So the decision of the government are based on that. So the question is that when we are developing the awakening citizen for this one nation or not? Are we ready to accept something else or some changes which should be affirmative for this one nation or not? Or our education system is working or not for that one? So my question is that one. And just you have asked the question about that one. Constitutional or unconstitutional, what can I say, where in this one, a heterogeneous country, we have a different type of factor which puts impact on that. Over to Mr. Chu.
So Gagan, let's say so it's very clear to me that left to political society, the reservation systems will never go away because of it's a vote bank, and how can you turn off 50% of the country? So oftentimes what politicians are not able to do in a country, the courts have to do. So Gagan, if you were a judge, and if ILA files a petition saying that this affirmative action and this reservation quota that the government keeps perpetuating, that's unconstitutional, and Your Honor, Judge Kumar, can you strike that affirmative action rules of the government of India as unconstitutional, and we file a petition, how would you rule?
I'll quote what the great jurist Mr. Nani Palkiwala wrote in his book on this issue. He said that the basic structure of constitution envisages a cohesive, unified, casteless society. By breathing new life into casteism, the judgment fractured the nation and disregarded the basic structure of the constitution. The decision would revitalize casteism, cleave the nation into two, forward and backward, and open up new vistas for internecine conflicts and vociferous forces, and make backwardness a vested interest. It will undo whatever has been achieved since independence towards creating a unified, integrated nation. So that sums up to a large extent that what was intended, and where the 1992 Mandal Commission judgment probably went wrong. And Justice Kuldeep Singh gave a minority judgment, and he noted in his judgment that this is probably the greatest curse which has been inflicted on the nation. And as Justice Nariman in his recent book, Discordant Note, somewhere mentioned that today's minority judgment is probably tomorrow's majority decision. So hopefully, we may foresee a situation that the mindset of the country changes, and accordingly, politicians are nothing but reflection of society. And just quoting Dr. Ambedkar, because it's his birthday, we're talking about it. And like Justice Kothari, I'll also like to quote what he stated on caste. He said that fraternity means a sense of common brotherhood of all Indians, of Indians being one people. Caste are anti-national. In the first place, they bring about separation in social life. They are anti-national also because they generate jealousy and antipathy between caste and caste. But we must overcome all these difficulties if we wish to become a nation in reality. So this was the view of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, where he said that the whole idea of casteism the idea itself is anti-national, a term which is currently used very commonly by everyone. So I think that sums up the answer which you asked me.
Today being his 133rd birth anniversary, I think we should, as a forum, call ye jo word Dalit hai, which I think is very derogatory. We should stop calling people Dalit or Agdi or what is this Pichdi. I mean, we are all Indians first. So we are one. Mr. Gagan rightly pointed out that we are Indians only. Caste is dividing this country. And when you make policies for economic gains or some preferences, people will naturally like to claim to fall in that particular category, segregating or excluding the others. And that is the most unfortunate part in a heterogeneous country like Rajesh pointed out. And I fully agree with him. But then EBC, economic-based reservation, which is now a recent concept upheld by Supreme Court recently again, that is in addition to the caste-based reservation. That should have been the sole basis. And had it been so right from beginning, I think all poor belonging to all castes, all sections would have arisen out of that situation. And that was the real equality to 75% at least in 75 years we could have achieved, expecting 100% in 100 years, even if you go by simple maths. So that somewhere down the line, I expressed earlier also, that one wrong decision or policy based on some report has been used by the government of the day more for a vote bank policy, which should be done away with. As a civic society, we should speak up. And it's our duty to do so, belonging to legal fraternity.
So, but Justice Kothari, because of the vote bank, we can't expect politicians in the country to ever change this law, which means that the judiciary is going to have to, because the judiciary doesn't care about a vote bank. So all we need is 3 judges of the Supreme Court to strike down this affirmative action.
Sir, not 3 judges. We need more than 13 judges. Basic features judgment has to be strengthened now by at least 13 or more judges of the Supreme Court. And you are very right. I strongly feel that judiciary is the only hope to set this track of development and true democracy in true sense in this country. If we have to maintain unity and
we need 13 out of 36 Supreme Court judges to sign on making this unconstitutional.
There is fortunately no dearth of Supreme Court judges now. It is almost full.
Okay.
So somebody should give a call, and the government should have courage to put this matter before the court of 13, 16, 17, whatever. Even the full court, we don't mind that. Let them deliberate for a month.
So you think right now there are not 13 judges on the Supreme Court that find this caste system and reservations and quotas, they don't find this unconstitutional?
They should deliberate upon this. There we all have equal opportunity to speak up. Lawyers, civic societies, everybody. Let the consensus of the people, we the people, the first 3 letters of this constitution, speak up. What do we want for next 25 years when we are going for the 100th birth anniversary of our country? Right. If we speak up, then I think the Honorable Supreme Court should become the voice of the we, the people of India. Ultimately, they are interpreters, the final interpreters of the Constitution. Right. And if the people speak up like that, things will change. Why not?
CJ, it's 1947 and you get a call from Nehru and you're Ambedkar and says, hey, CJ, write a constitution. And knowing what you know now, what would you put in the constitution about the reservation system? Would you absolutely say India needs to be a casteless society and I'm not going to agree to put any line that utters the word caste? Or you will agree, or you will put 10 years, or you'll put 25 or 50. It's a chance for you to rewrite the constitution with hindsight. What would you do?
Probably India is the only country which has got the best constitution in the world. Our constitution is made by taking the cream of all the civilized constitutions. And despite that, why our constitution is not delivering? The answer lies in the persons who execute the interest of the constitution. There's nothing wrong in reservation. What is wrong is the non-applicability of mind when giving reservation. You look at the label and are granting reservation. We are not checking whether a particular sector which is given reservation deserves reservation or not. Whether a sector or a person deserves reservation or not has to be periodically checked. His bank balance has to be checked. How many members in his family have graduated or reached a proper level? If one or two persons in each family has derived the benefits and are able to do well in the future, then automatically the reservation should end there. Today, the situation is the very class of people or caste, whatever you say, for whom the reservation was initially initiated, a large chunk, a majority of such population is still lagging behind without getting any benefits. Even from the reserved categories, the persons who have reaped the benefits, only they are reaping benefits from generation to generation. Today, if somebody wants a caste certificate, a backward caste wants a caste certificate, he has to bribe the government. Then only he gets a caste certificate. And it's not very easy to bribe, you need money. And when the government grants monetary assistance to people, only those who are aware of this get. The so-called forerunners of political parties who are supposed to disseminate the information about the policies of the government, they are the ones who bag all the benefits. And when you look back, the most deserving category are still lingering and starving. That is the situation in India. Our problem is not with respect to lack of good legislation. Our problem is with respect to application of mind in an honest and what we call in a judicious manner. Until and unless our education is capable of eradicating the moral depravity of our minds, until and unless our education really brings us what we call makes us honest in our thoughts and thought processes, we are not going to achieve anything. Any number of legislation is not going to bring a social change in India. You require a good moral education, and that education you have to learn yourself. Moral education cannot be forced upon anybody. You have to develop it from your inside. If we do not have the sense of cleanliness in ourselves, even if you keep a garbage bin in the room, you will not discontinue your habit of throwing the things on the floor directly, instead of putting in the garbage bin. That is the situation.
Can I add few words here, sir? I think you very rightly pointed out the ecosystem which I talked of, the ease of life which I say in a true sense, good democracy. I think the first reform, we need many reforms in our country, and we have been talking about that in various fields, in various sectors. I think this entire vicious circle of negativity or badness about us has to be broken from the education system. our education system given by Macaulays has ruined this country. We have prepared employable, unemployed youth in our country for last 75 years. We have not created good citizens. Our old Gurukul system, Rishi system, first made good human beings. That is, and it should start from right primary education level, not only in colleges and higher grades of these schools. Unless we create, see the example of children. Japan, I was in some country, not in Japan exactly, where some Japanese kids or some video I saw, they were passing through the road. The moment the cars stopped, they crossed the road, they bowed in respect for the car drivers. This just to show courtesy, just to show civility, just to show respect for others. As simple things like this, cleanliness. They clean their entire office, school building, right from toilets, bathrooms to classrooms. In some of the schools in India in old times also, for example, Bal Niketan in our town, Jodhpur, the kids used to clean every part of the school and then eat the tiffin sitting together. That indirectly gave the sense of fraternity, friendship, cleanliness. These basic things we are not teaching to our kids now. And that is the best formative years where we can prepare good citizens. Equality is not something to come from some cloud or some foreign country. It has to be born with us. It has to develop with us. So we have to prepare, and education is the only place, is commencing from the kindergarten to school to colleges, where we can prepare good citizens. I would just mention, by the way, on the sidelines, I had written an article in 2006, which I sent to the then President APJ Abdul Kalam sir, who wrote a very kindly appreciation letter for that. One of the suggestions I gave at that time in 2006, the compulsory military training to the youth of the country. And he said it's a very important suggestion. I cited some examples of outside India also. That would have prepared good citizens having a sense of love and belongingness for the country. You would not see the property destruction by strikers on the roads if you have majority of youth trained in that manner, where they love their country, they love the property of their country. So these kind of small things, preparing good citizens is the first thing we should think of. I don't think so far in last 75 years, any serious effort was made by any government of the day to put the education policy back on the tracks. We may have very good constitution, but it is not the constitution which fails us. It is the citizens who fail the constitution. Palkewala said that. Defiling of the constitution. That book I have read. So somewhere we all have to put our thoughts together in forums like this and elsewhere also. As a civic society, we should do that exercise. That what we should do as senior citizens and as senior people of the country, it is our obligation and duty to tell the government of the day that this is what is good for the country and this is what we insist on you to do it. There are many other reforms which we can, during the course of further debate, talk about it. Thank you.
So Justice Kothari, you were on the bench for over 30 years, and the affirmative action programs set in motion in 1950, they had a purpose of helping the disadvantaged groups get better access to education, employment, and other opportunities. In your experience on the bench in 30 years, what is your impression of, did the reservation quota system, did it actually do any good?
No, sir, I respectfully submit. I have seen many cases, not really as a single judge or a division bench of one high court. You can't make a countrywide impact, as you know. But then the cases which came on our board, we have seen many people having suffered on account of such quota systems by the state policies or the central government policies. Education seats not being allocated to meritorious people. Great heartburning. Medical colleges, engineering colleges. People are not getting seats where the other sections who were given those quotas were not even able to fill up those posts. Still, those posts were not filled up. So this is kind of distorted or skewed balance in the policies which was never brought about in our country. He rightly pointed out application of mind. Somebody should apply mind and good mind and honest mind to the implementation of the affirmative action which you want to take. So whether policy is absolutely right or not is something different. Even assuming for the argument's sake that it is absolutely right, the implementation of that should also be fair and reasonable. That, as a judge, I felt was not being done. And wherever the opportunity arose to us, we gave the judgments to balance the things. And as I said, as a single judge or as division bench of the High Court, there are always further appeals and the litigation goes on in this country. Another thing, if we talk about judicial reforms, is another big chapter or big debate by itself, that to give the sense of equality to the citizenry, what is the quality of judicial dispensation which we should have in this country? Despite our judges being overloaded with work, lawyers being overloaded with work, is a common man, last man in the line, as Gandhiji said. Is he getting justice? Is he getting timely justice? Is he getting quality justice? I think with great sense of pain, I would say, perhaps no. There we have to think again.
So, Dr. Methi, the other inequality in our constitution or the way we practice law in India is that India is one of the few countries in the planet out of the 193 countries where when you walk into a court, the judge says to you, what is your religion? And then based on your answer, the judge pulls out the law book for that religion. And do you really think that we will become a first world nation if we don't even have a uniform civil code for all 1.4 billion people of India, irrespective of their religion?
मैं हिंदी में बोलना चाहूंगा इस पर, और आपने ठीक बात कही कि हम धर्म के आधार पर क्या हमारे बीच कोई भिन्नता है, और उसको हम कोर्ट में भी देख सकते हैं. ये 75 वर्ष का जो राष्ट्र होने जा रहा है, वी आर गेटिंग अप्रोक्सीमेटली क्रॉस द 75 इयर्स. तो अभी भी आप देख सकते हैं कि पिछले 75 वर्षों में इस राष्ट्र को जिस तरीके से बांटा गया और आज जो स्थितियां बन रही है, आप भी देखेंगे एक अलग तरीके से अभी देश में पूरा मोमेंटम है. अभी मैं किसी से बातचीत कर रहा था, अभी पिछले सप्ताह में एक त्योहार था, तो पूरे देश में एक अलग तरीके से वो देखा गया है. उसके क्या कारण रहे? तो मैं आपकी बात से पूरी तरह सहमत हूं कि यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड की बात होनी चाहिए. और हम इक्वलिटी की जब बात करते हैं आर्टिकल 14 में, 15 में, 16 में जब बातचीत करते हैं, तो वहां क्यों नहीं? वहां पर भी होना चाहिए, क्योंकि वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द ह्यूमन बीइंग. हम मानव की बात कर रहे हैं, और शायद वहां कुछ चीजें ऐसी हो सकती है जो मानव के नाते नहीं हो सकती. तो निश्चित रूप से देश में बहस होनी चाहिए, खुली बहस होनी चाहिए. खुली बहस के साथ साथ उस पर गहराई से सोचा जाना चाहिए. और पीछे भी जो बात जस्टिस कोठारी ने उठाई, वी द पीपल, मैं जो आप पीछे वाला क्वेश्चन था उसमें क्या वी द पीपल इज आल्सो इंटरेस्टेड टू टेक सम अफर्मेटिव डिसीजन. सो just nowadays you can see there is some thought process has been started in the we the people also about the uniform civil code, and might be some changes or some improvement can be seen in next 1, 2 or 3 years. So that should be need of the hour. वो जरूरत है. यदि हमें एक विकसित राष्ट्र के रूप में भारत को लेके जाना है, तो निश्चित रूप से सबके लिए समान सोच होनी चाहिए. ये हो सकता है कि हमारी परंपराएं हो सकती है, हमारी रीति रिवाज हो सकते हैं, उनका पूरा मान सम्मान हो, लेकिन वो ऐसा नहीं हो कि कहीं मानवता से परे हमें ले जाए. तो मेरा ये मानना है कि निश्चित रूप से उसकी जरूरत है. ओवर टू मिस्टर चुग.
Thank you. So, Gagan, where did this law come about that the farmers of India, even if they're billionaires, will not be taxed?
You'll have to see how the situation was in 1947, and in fact that would answer to a large extent the issue of reservation as well. As the normal human tendency is that one extreme is often responded with another extreme. So centuries of persecution needed to be balanced out, and therefore certain affirmative actions had to be taken. Now, the result today, the way we look at it is that yesterday's underprivileged has become privileged people today. So, which is tilting the balance, and which was never the intention of the law when it was initially came in. I'll just quote, I was reading somewhere while we were preparing for this show that in Kerala there was an incident that a lady, in order to obtain the caste certificate, claimed before the magistrate that her son, is actually an illegitimate child from a lower caste person. So that's the extent people went to get this certificate. That's the unfortunate part, and therefore, but at the same time, you must also bear in mind the thought process of the people. See, as long as we will not stop having separate utensils for our servant maid, this issue will not be resolved entirely. And briefly touching upon the Uniform Civil Code, and then I'll come to the farm law issue. If we have an accepted uniform criminal code, what is the difficulty in having a uniform civil code? That's the simple one statement I would like to make. Thirdly, on the farm issue, that why farmers are not taxable. As I said, that pre-independence, obviously, farming had been the backbone of this country's economy. They were probably the most exploited category. So therefore, the constitution maker in the constitution declared that no income from the agriculture will be taxed. But as we say in law, that contemporario expositio, that's the principle which we follow while interpreting a law, that you have to see the contemporary situation when the law was drafted. Things have changed since 1947. Probably a time has come now, and as we are talking about India and India 2047, so maybe a discussion has started in the right earnest, and probably we'll see that those who are not deserving, at least they should not be given these tax advantages. So there is a minimum alternate tax on units doing business in special economic zone. So probably at some point in time, a minimum alternate tax may come on agriculture income as well. But as Justice Kothari also said, end of the day, it's we the people. We have to first start discussing these ideas. Ultimately, this will become the movement, and that movement will be reflected in the people whom we elect and send to the legislative bodies. So
there is another angle. May I, sir, with the permission of the chair? As you know, only 5% of the people pay income tax in our country, and out of that 5%, also a very minuscule percentage pays higher amount of taxation. So it's a totally imbalanced kind of thing. I fully agree with Gagan and others who have said that agriculture income tax on billionaire agriculturists should also be imposed, because they have no, right to escape from income tax merely because they are engaged in a particular kind of occupation. There is another idea which was talked earlier, to substitute even the entire income tax by the Banking Transaction Act. Now the era has come when everybody has a bank account. So if you tax every banking transaction at a particular level, maybe 5 paisa each 100 rupees, which is too small, everybody will have to participate in that taxation system. This 5% will go up to almost 90%. And then the collection will be naturally much higher. So such out-of-box thinking, if we are talking of last 25 years of 100 years now, have to be considered. And I think income tax law, a little bit of which I also know, is the most complex law in our country. Every section has 5 to 10 subsections, 3 to 4 provisos, 8 to 10 explanations, and then A, B, C, D, E, F, G adds to every section or many of these sections. By the time you read the subsection 1 and the last section, you forget the first subsection. Even for a tax expert, that's the position. If this kind of complex law you want to be implemented to garner a major revenue source in your country, how can you expect a ease of business or ease of living? I think none of the lawyers or has ever being exception of being a chartered accountant. I have seen many senior lawyers coming to our office of CA and saying, भैया टैक्स कितना भरना है चालान बना दो, बाकी इनकम टैक्स कैसे रिटर्न भरना तुम भर देना. Because they are just out to think कि ये भला क्या है, for a simple professional income and how to make their savings deductible from that taxable income was not their cup of tea. What to talk of business complexities where so many transactions happen and this complex law has to be dealt with. So something has to be done, broad basing the tax collection, like GST is doing. GST has done wonderful thing. The collections have increased. The transactions have come to book. The people are participating. They are understanding. Technology is helping. So the corruption is also reduced in that. So many advantages have happened. So such drastic good reforms should happen in the field of income tax also. These all problems of agriculture not being taxed, etc., go away. But somebody has to really take the courage. And about religion, one more quote from Mr. Ambedkar. He said about religion must mainly be a matter of principles only. It cannot be a matter of rules. The moment it degenerates into rules, it ceases to be a religion, as it kills responsibility, which in essence is an essence of the true religious act. So how nicely put it. Religion is a matter of faith. It is a matter of spiritualism. It's a way to reach the God. So where is the question of dividing the population of the country along the religions line? Everybody should respect other religions. It's a matter of faith.
Right. So I think if we were to build a new country, if all of us ended up on Mars or Moon, and we had to build a new country, a new society, I think the first chapter is tax, because we need money. We want to do education for the 300 million kids of India. We want to provide healthcare for the 1.4 billion people of India. We want to build an infrastructure and roads and dams and airports and train stations and schools and colleges. So we need money. And so if we need money, the first thing we have to do is set up a tax system, and a tax system that's fair and does not discriminate in any which way, shape, or form, whether you're in farming or you're in IT or you are making hammers, the tax system should be the same. And the discrimination is if you make more money, then you pay more tax. So if 95% of the country doesn't pay any taxes or doesn't file a tax return, then in a way, they're living in a house and eating, but not providing even a penny to the household budget. And in a lot of countries around the world, the poorest 10% or 20% or 25%, when they file a tax return and the income is very low, the government sends them a check to equalize, and so that they don't resort to crime and they don't stand on the street and beg and they don't file unemployment claims and they don't resort to crime of any sort. To keep them at home and taking care of their family, the government sends a check. In many countries, including advanced developed nations, 50% of the country pays no tax because the tax slabs have been set such that the top 1% pays 25% of the tax, and the other 49% and the top 50% pay the remaining 65% of the tax, and the bottom 50% pays no tax. And the bottom 10, 15, 20% gets money from the government. In addition to that, we need to provide for Social Security or some sort of retirement benefit when independent contractors and self-employed business people retire. We need to provide healthcare for the 1.4 billion people of India. All of that requires money. All of that requires collecting tax. I think, like Justice Learned Hand, a famous Supreme Court judge of the United States in 1934, said that I don't mind paying taxes because it buys me civilization. And if we want to be a first world nation by 2047, at least 80% of the 1.4 billion people in India need to be filing a tax return and paying taxes and contributing to the society. And then we can set up systems for the poor. And so I think if I asked CJ a question earlier that given an opportunity to rewrite the Constitution, and from what I read, Dr. Ambedkar did not want to utter the word caste in the Constitution. And that's how it should be. It's unfortunate that a beautiful child is born in India every 2 seconds, and the child is a gift of God and has no racial, caste, color, creed distinction, except for we, the society, have figured out that as soon as the child is born, we're going to brand the child scheduled caste or OBC or backward classes or Dalit or Brahmin or whatever. And then the child is stuck with that for the rest of their life. And if we want to help the disadvantaged, which is what the government wanted to do in 1950, there are many other ways of figuring out who's economically disadvantaged and give them free food vouchers or whatever. There's endless ways, give them free healthcare. So in a lot of advanced countries around the world, if you are old or if you're poor, you get free medical care. And if you're in the middle, and if you're in middle class and you're not old, then you have to kind of fend for yourselves. So there's many other ways to achieve the purpose of the affirmative action programs. So Mohinder Gugnani, who is president of ILA Rohtak, he has a question. Mohinder, go ahead.
He earlier raised the hand also, but
Yeah.
is he in the
Mohinder
meeting?
Gugnani, you had a question? Okay. While we're waiting for him, so
Hello.
yeah,
Gagan?
Yeah.
yeah,
I just wanted to make a comment on the affirmative action, and you suggested that the idea is that a check is sent to the families who can't earn. So one, I think the distortion of 5% probably can never be taken away, because the wealth is largely concentrated with those 5% only. So the question which we need to ask ourselves is that why there is not a fair distribution of wealth. I think Mr. Gugnani has unmuted himself. Maybe we can take his question.
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm very happy to see all of such prestigious people. Tuksa, I met you 3 years ago in Rohtak. And I am also welcoming CJ is here also. In year 2008, one scheme launched was by income tax authorities. Smile, file, and go away. That was a tax of 1,400 for small businessmen. And government collected so many taxes from so many peoples. Now government has removed this scheme. Government should start such schemes that minimum 10,000 tax should be paid by everyone. So tax can be collected. One thing CJ is here. In courts, judges are not working properly, I think. They are giving dates by on arguments, date, kitne saal date lagti rehti hai. It should be in written. No date. You submit your documents in written. Another vakil will also, and judge should decide. Most of the judges are not able to write orders. I'm very sorry to say this. System should be clear. So there are so many lapses in procedures.
Right. Thank you, Mohinder.
Thank you.
So Justice Kothari, we're coming to our 1 hour time session. Can you help us? We would like for Yeah. So, Justice Kothari, we would like, before we approach our 100th anniversary, birth anniversary in 2047, I think ILA and all the lawyers who are in favor of this, we should make a commitment that let's first of all agree that the politicians cannot do this and they have a vested interest. And I guess we can't blame them. Nobody is going to irritate 50% of the voting bank. So the lawyers have to do this and the judiciary has to sign off. So give us a roadmap on how we can achieve this in the next few years. What do we have to do?
Thank you. Yes, of course. I see a very proactive need of a proactive role of judiciary. And of course, the judiciary comprises of judges and lawyers both. They are two wheels of the chariot, as we always say. I would not, before just blaming the politicians and saying, thank you, whatever you could not do, we will do. I would think and I would urge the civic society to seriously think about and demand the political reforms also. The need of qualifications, the need of, if you're not qualified, say college graduate also, your service track record should be there to entitle you to contest any public office. Some kind of reform should be introduced for entry into the political realm where they get a ruling position. So that entry points also, I mean, it's not, we all 3-4 parts of the state have to work in tandem. If each wing pulls the other's legs, we will fall down, we will not progress further. So it's not one section which we should take. But talking of the status quo as it exists now and need of proactive judiciary, as you have said, and I also agree with you, sir. I think it is high time that very important questions of constitutional requirements. Now the Supreme Court is also very proactively doing it. But there is a need to enlist and narrow down the list of the important topics or subjects where the larger benches of the Supreme Court should interpret those provisions in the light of the need of the society, not only now, but in coming 50 years or so, or coming 25 years or so. So those issues need to be reconsidered, brought on the table of the Honorable Supreme Court, and with the speech or the voice of the lawyers, aided by the civic societies, I think a roadmap definitely lies ahead before the Honorable Supreme Court, where important questions like reservations, like mix of religion and politics, like educational reforms, like police reforms, corruption laws, all these need to be tackled, and some reforms through the judicial process can be brought about by parliament also, because wherever the unoccupied fields are there, we know the judiciary has stepped in and tried to fill up those gaps and lacunas. So all these important uniform civil code, for example, Article 44 is there, directive principle is there. Supreme Court has been telling time and again, it's time to implement that. But now a time has come where on the basis of reading together of the fundamental rights and basic features and the directive principles, some kind of mandamus has to be issued to do certain things for the affirmative action in the country. So that ultimately in 2047, and it's not like a limitation law, it's a big period where the country's youth is also trying to change, the country's economic development is trying to change, the education, advanced education is also trying to change the face of the country. Reforms are coming, but we need, I think, the help of the judiciary in a very, very large measure in our country, so that all join hands for ultimate goal, one goal, good India, world leader India in 2047.
So Justice Kothari, practically, how does it work? Can ILA file a petition in the Supreme Court, or an individual can, or do we have to file it first in the lower court, and if we lose, then file an appeal? How does it work?
No. I think PIL is the best way of bringing on the table the larger issues, and well-researched data and well-researched material. I think the Honorable Supreme Court always entertains. Frivolous petitions are, of course, not entertained. But then not only ILA, you can join hands with others. ILA itself can do good research work and project these questions. Why not lead from the front?
Sure. And you'll sign the petition on behalf of ILA, Justice Kothari?
I can't sign, I can argue as a senior counsel.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to be part of that arguing team, surely.
Sure. Sometimes things take time. And line 1 of the Constitution is every human being is equal in India. And
Yeah.
line 2 is 50% of the country gets a special treatment. So seems to me that this is something that we can fix in 75 years. So we'll work on it.
Yes,
Thank you.
I think we all should make good effort for that. And this is time to lead. Yes. And lawyers have always been leading, right?
Yeah.
Pre-independence era also lawyers have been the forerunners, I think.
I'm always reminded that there was an Indian Lawyers Association in 1882 in India. It was just known as the Indian National Congress. And then we didn't carry on after 1947. The British left India, but the lawyers in India are still in prison. We cannot advertise, we cannot have contingency lawyering, we cannot set up a booth at a conference, we can't have a website. And therefore, 90% of the lawyers in India don't make enough money as they should, because we're left in chains even after 75 years. But that's for another topic some other day.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Methi. Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Gagan. Thank you, Madhura.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful debate and discussion. I think those who are listening or will listen in future will get some ideas at least, and whatever they can do at their own end, one should always try to give his own bit for the nation building, as I always say, and contribution for the national development. Thank you very much for organizing this.
Sure. We'll start working on the PIL, and I think it's okay if we lose, because I think we're going to have to file 20, 30 of them till we win.
Yes.
Thank you.
You will not lose, sir, so long as you have a good team of lawyers. I will not
Thank
allow
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Kothari. Thank you, Mr. Chugh. Thanks, Madhura.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak.